have a couple things before we get into the budget stuff. Mark is here, if we want him to go first.
Yeah.
I apologize, I didn't get it to you sooner. I emailed a copy to Jeanette today, but this is, I did. I'll talk to Joe.
Like
I hope.
this afternoon,
Yes.
you copied us, because I know I got it this afternoon.
So that's. Here's a copy.
What email did you send it to?
The admin assistant and selectman.
The correct address.
I don't have anything yet. Wait, let me see. This might not have updated yet. I don't usually work on the laptop, so.
So the admin assistant.
Yep, 321.
Okay.
So I actually had quite a few questions.
Okay.
You haven't looked at it yet, right, Eric? Have you looked at it?
Not fully, no.
Do we want to go down through it?
My pen.
You want to pull a chair up?
Just take this one.
You want to ask? Here, let me see. Okay, so the disposal facility is in CES.
Correct.
And then down under disposal of acceptable waste, I got a question. Do we
Yep.
need just one container or do we need two? We need two. That's what I thought.
Yep, and there's two there.
Okay,
Yep, we've dropped off two.
right, but the agreement says one.
Yep.
And then on hauling, it's specific to the disposal facility, which is in CES.
Correct.
And when we had conversations with Casella earlier, we were concerned about if NCS closes. You know, it's going to at some
Yeah.
point. And the agreement, the verbal agreement in meetings was that they would provide transportation to another facility at no additional cost. So that's not covered in
Okay, I
this.
wasn't aware of that. The term of this agreement coincides with the known life of NCES.
So it's June of 2027.
Yep.
I've heard some forecasts that it might be 2026,
No.
but I want to protect the town. My
Understood.
job is to protect the
Yep,
town.
understood.
And if something did happen, for whatever reason.
Yep.
This agreement doesn't protect the town.
So what, I'm just trying to look for a section, if there's something, if there's a. I'm wondering if under warranties or something, we put in something about in the event of closure, Casella will haul the waste to an agreed upon disposal site.
At no additional cost to the town. And then we need to talk about time period because
As far as child,
what as a town I think we should be concerned about is losing our spot at Mount Carberry when NCES closes. There's no alternative, long-term alternative at that point. I was concerned about under the warranties.
Mhm.
So this is 4.1B, the
Yep.
warranties and covenants. Town further covenants that it shall, 1, cooperate in all respects with all orders or requests to Casella by any governmental body relating to the regulation of solid waste the disposal facility, transfer station, or this agreement. 2, cooperate with Casella in any reasonable efforts by Casella to maintain and apply for any permits, renewals, and necessary approvals that shall be necessary to perform its obligations under this agreement. And 3, provide with immediate oral notice and confirming written notice within 24 hours of its awareness of the possibility that materials other than acceptable waste may be contained in the waste that may be or has been delivered hereunder. I think 3 is fine, but those first 2 are
So-
incredibly broad. So the first one is cooperate in all respects with all orders or requests to Casella by any governmental body relating to the regulation of solid waste. Why would the town do that? I mean,
So
there's,
let's
but
say,
that means that, like,
so right now there's legislation being proposed in New Hampshire for an EPR, or extended producer responsibility for paint, which means you can't throw paint away. This is just an example.
right,
So what this is saying is if a law changes or comes into existence, that we would work together to comply with that law. That's what this is in reference to.
but that's not what it says.
This is legalese, so, but that's what this is in reference to. Cooperate in all respects with all orders or requests to Casella by any governmental agency. So if we're told we've got to manage solid waste in a particular fashion, that may change the way we do business.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just asking you to cooperate with us.
Okay. And I could see that. I would like confirmation of that interpretation
Yeah.
by our legal. And then the second one is cooperate with Casella in any reasonable efforts by Casella to maintain and apply for any permits, renewal, and necessary approvals that shall be necessary to perform its obligation under this agreement.
Yep.
I don't think the town should get into that. That's on the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3, Eric. Yeah,
Yeah.
4.1B.
4.1B2.
Because, you know, if you apply for an extension of NCES or an expansion, I don't think that Dalton should be involved with that at all.
No, I understand that.
And, you know, this is even broader. It doesn't specify just NCES. And I don't think the town, the select board, can do that without a vote of the town. I just think it's out of our scope of what we have the authority to do.
I can ask about that one too.
And it worries me because 4.2 says the warranties and covenants of this section 4, which we've been talking about, shall survive the expiration or termination of this agreement. So the select board can't agree to things in perpetuity.
Sure. So there's a federal regulation referred to as RECRA, which talks about cradle to grave. So what this is talking about is that because we've taken a particular waste from the town of Dalton, that doesn't absolve Dalton of its responsibilities either. We haven't passed that.
I don't understand.
So there's a federal law called RECRA, Resource Conservation Recovery Act, which talks about the generator of a waste is responsible for that waste from its creation to its destruction. So let's say somebody throws the wrong thing in a particular container, we pick it up, deliver it to NCES, that's not on us, that's you. And let's say that happens and it's discovered on July 1st, 2027. That's what this is in reference to.
I don't think we can agree to that. I don't know how we can as a town, as a municipality.
All right, that's a federal law, so that exists.
I think it's there, if you're talking about industrial waste, that makes a lot of sense. But if you're talking about municipal waste, conceptually, I don't know how we can even be responsible for that.
So,
especially after it's accepted at your facility. I mean, I think then our responsibility ends. I mean, you're gonna go back to the individual homeowners or residents who just put their trash at the
that's
end.
just, I mean, like I said, that's a regulation that exists on the books. It's an old law. So I'm happy to look into it and get clarification on 4.2 as well, to further clarify that.
Because I don't know how we can, in other agreements, whether it be like our lease purchase agreements or our quote-unquote 5-year computer support thing, we have a clause to be able to get out after a year. And I think we have to have that as a municipality. We can't agree to things in perpetuity, which is what this clause says.
Do we have that same agreement with Carberry?
I'm
No.
trying to, I don't remember it in the agreement. I'd have to look back. I mean, it's been 5 years since I've looked at that. I don't think so.
There isn't. The first year was it.
Well, if it's a federal regulation, I would think we would have that same agreement.
But I think it depends on the interpretation. You know, it makes sense, like if you have industry that's producing waste, they should be responsible for it. But a municipality is different, so I think we need to look back at that original Carberry agreement and see what it says. And actually look at the regulation and look at the details of it.
So I can get clarification on those pieces for sure.
On the attachment for the standard terms and conditions, limitation of liability. Neither party shall be liable to the other for special, incidental, exemplary, punitive, or consequential damages, including without limitation, loss of use, loss of profits or revenue, or cost of substitute or re-performed services suffered, asserted, or alleged by either party or any third party arising from or related to this agreement. But we've talked about if NCES closes and we don't have an alternative, you know, we need to make sure that Casella is liable to providing us the same services at the same cost. Because we're taking a risk by going to NCES instead of staying at Carberry with the pending closure of NCES as a town.
Understood. That's what you had said at the last meeting.
If you go down to the paragraph on force majeure, you know, a lot of these are the standard flood, fire, or whatever. Section 4. So here, this is on page 5. Under the attachment, which is the standard terms and conditions. Okay, so this is section A, then section 4. An order or judgment, including without limitation a temporary restraining order, temporary injunction, preliminary injunction, permanent injunction, or cease and desist order, or other act of any federal, state, county, or local court, administrative agency, or governmental office or body which prevents a party's obligations as contemplated by this agreement. So to me, if, for example, NCES is closed down by DES for whatever reason, that treated as a force majeure, which you know, it's different than a flood or a fire or a war.
This is just standard contract language. I mean, if a federal agency closes anything,
Mhm.
I mean, that's a cause for resolving a contract. You know, if you had mentioned a lease agreement earlier, you know, if some agency for some reason closes it because, you know, you're working with a CPA and something comes up and the Department of Revenue Administration comes in and closes that contractor's office down, that's cause for a force majeure. I mean, that's just standard contract language.
So the next paragraph goes that neither party shall be liable to the other for damages without limitation if such party's performance is delayed or prevented due to an act of force majeure. Such event, the affected party shall promptly notify the other of the event of the force majeure and its likely duration. And the non-performing party shall exercise commercially reasonable efforts to mitigate or limit damages to the performing party. But that just jumped out to me as
Sure, no, I understand, absolutely, but just like you just read, you know, we're both, let's say the transfer station burns. And we go, hey, wait a minute, you said you're gonna haul this every other week. That's loss of revenue. We're not gonna go after you because your transfer station burned down.
There's nothing in this agreement that has quantity or timing of what we're obligated to send to you.
It's just a conversation I had with Kyle. I'm just
Right,
saying,
yeah.
you know, you mentioned a conversation that you had with Casella earlier, so I was
Right.
just,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, that's a
stating
good
the
example.
conversation.
Yeah, if we're, I just didn't know what the expectation was in terms of what we would send to NCES.
No, there's no expectation. I mean, when we set these up, we have conversations to determine our ability and what the cost of that service would be. So it's based on estimates that we, you know, at one point you guys delivered waste to NCES. We looked at historical records and
Right.
this is what was there, so.
So, on page 6, it says these warranties shall survive the expiration or termination of this agreement.
I'm sorry, where are you?
Page
Oh,
6,
okay,
and again,
top part.
you know, I don't think we can obligate the town longer than a year. For termination, the agreement may be terminated by mutual agreement between the parties, or if any of the representations and warranties contained in this agreement are shown to be untrue, or in the event of a failure by the other party to perform a material obligation,
With 30-day
false
notice.
default. But what about, you know, if the town decides to terminate it? We should be able to have a notice and a termination.
That's what that is.
No, it's a mutual agreement, so if Casella
C
doesn't,
says by either party,
but that's,
not both, by either party in the event of a failure by the other party to perform a material obligation as follows.
right, but what if that hasn't happened? We just want to change.
So without cause, you can just, that's a general course of business for the town of Dalton, that you decide not to work with a particular contractor.
Most contracts have a termination clause where you have a 30 or
Right,
60
that's
or
what
90
this
day
is.
period, and that's not in here.
It's right there, you just read it.
But that's if there's
If there's
failure
exactly.
by the other party.
If one party is not performing the duties as spelled out in the contract, 30 days notice and the contract's terminated.
So with Carberry, there's no failure on their part. The board decided they wanted to go to Casella. We're able to get out of that contract with notice. Where with this, we wouldn't be able to.
Right, until June 30th, 2027.
I think,
And I don't think we can obligate the town past a year. I'd have to pull up the RSAs to,
I don't know if it was Kevin Roy or someone with Kevin Roy. When they came and did one of the first presentations for the NCES, he did say that there would be a cancellation clause of 30 days. I don't know what meeting it was.
I wrote on here, on the bottom of my page, what's that say? Kick out. It's referred to as a kick out clause.
Okay.
So, those are items that I will look at.
Okay. Then the other thing, which is always a trigger for me, is indemnification. So the indemnification clause is, the parties agree to indemnify, save harmless, and defend each other from and against any and all liabilities, claims, penalties, forfeitures, suits, and the costs and expenses incident thereto, which may occur after the effective date of this agreement, and so on and so forth. And that's, I'm always, it raises red flags to me for the town to have to indemnify a company. So that's something that I'm not comfortable with.
All right, so I'm guessing we're not signing this tonight,
I don't see how we can.
and we continue to provide service without a contract. I just want to make sure that that's understood. We responded very quickly last week to a need that the town of Dalton had, where your previous contractor pulled containers out, and you did not have a day of disrupted service. Okay, that's the kind of service that you're gonna get with us. I understand your concerns, and I'll address them. We'll look into this and make sure that the language is more in line with what you're looking for. But I just want to make sure that you understand that we're committed to provide service to our municipalities.
Can we go with 40-yard dumpsters?
Already talked to Kyle
Yeah,
about that.
We've
Yep.
already covered that.
Okay.
Again, we're responding to the request of the town of Dalton.
We appreciate that, thank you.
So, some of the things that you're talking about, there's part of this that, and I get it, we're renewing a relationship. You need to know that we're gonna take care of this. That's all I wanted to say.
I have a question. Why did we stop going to that plan in the first?
Carol, you can help make sure I remember correctly, because it's 5 years ago. We looked at NCES closing in the future and not knowing the timing, if there is a Granite State landfill, that there might be a gap. And so we moved to Carberry to make sure that we had a place to take our trash that would be uninterrupted.
Well, and Bethlehem was in court when they were trying to expand, so we weren't sure they were going to be able to do 20, 25, and 20.
And recently, surrounding towns have been doing the same thing. So Littleton just started going to Carberry, and other towns for the same reason. And the problem with moving away from Carberry is they may or may not have room to take us back if NCES closes and there's not another
Okay,
option.
so when does Carberry close? What's their time?
It's way out there. I mean, they've got expansion plans. They've got capacity through the mid-2030s.
Yeah.
And they've got room for expansion.
And how much does it cost for us to truck to Carberry versus Bethlehem?
Kyle, that's not the real question. The question is, if the landfill in Bethlehem closes, what's it going to cost us to have it trucked to Rochester?
Well, you truck it to Carberry, won't you?
Rochester is
If we
further
can get that
away.
in, because Carberry has a cap on what they take each year. So if we're a customer, then we're part of that calculation. But if they're at the cap and we want to go back, we might not be able to.
Might.
I will address your concerns, and we'll be back here next Monday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
here's the full statistical reval contract from our new appraiser. We're not signing anything, you just need to review it,
I have some questions.
so that DRA can then approve it. Once DRA approves it, then we sign it.
My biggest question was the utility assessment.
Uh-huh.
Because got notes on my. Okay, so on page 6, section 2.21,
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the agreement,
What's your agreement? Oh, that
the
agreement.
appraisal
I'm
agreement.
sorry. Page 6.
Yeah, page 6, 2.21.
Yeah.
It says, contractor shall appraise all taxable property within municipality. And my question is, what about the utilities? Should we exclude the utilities? And that comes up in a couple of other places. So my big question is, what about utilities? On page 8, 2.7.2. It has the itemized cost for the appraisal of special use of utilities property if not excluded in 2.7.1. So,
Yeah, it says NA, so,
right, so,
which I would take as there's no utilities being assessed or being appraised.
okay. But we need to exclude it in 2.2.1. And then on page 13, 3.5.1. The contractor shall be responsible for the valuation of poles and conduits unless the town is under contract with another vendor for this service. And again, is that part of what Skipsy and Susie does for us? And you need to clarify that.
Okay,
Those were my only concerns with this.
because it says in 3.5.2, the company shall not be responsible for the valuation of any utility properties. The company recommends a town contract the services for the difference through a separate vendor or use values established by DRA.
So there was, but it wasn't consistent all the way through.
Gotcha.
So
It's probably just included in there, and then
in your template,
they say if.
Yeah.
Okay,
so just making sure that that's
Yep.
consistent.
I'll send that to them.
Did you have any comments?
About the rebuild.
Yeah, about the agreement.
So then, I have the minutes from January 6th. Did you guys have a chance to
I
review
read
those? You did? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I accept that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's non-public number 1 for legal from January 6th.
I make a motion to accept the minutes. Non-public.
Number 1, I'll second that.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye. I have minutes for non-public number 2. And one thing I did is under the boxes that we check off for which RSA subparagraph it is, I added a paragraph for RSA 91, A:3, 2 parentheses L for consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel, either in writing or orally, to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present. And so that might be a good one to just add to the template.
Okay, you'll have to send me your template because I won't be able to see those minutes. I wasn't
Right,
allowed in that section.
and it's just copied from the RSA.
Make a motion to accept the minutes. Non-public number 2.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Do you write on the envelope
Yep.
what it is?
What was the topic for that one?
It was legal.
Motion to accept non-public number 3.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Give me that envelope.
It's legal. the table around so we can see the screen.
Keep going.
There we go.
Can you still see Carol?
Move it over this way.
So I did something a little different this year as far as putting the numbers together, trying to keep things in line with the municipal resources software that we use. Everything kind of lines up to DRA's accounts, DRA's numbers, and breakdowns. So what I did is I basically took a copy.
Can you show the headings for the columns?
Yeah, I will in just a minute, as soon as all these pop-ups go away. No, so I don't do this very often.
The two for each page in the top. Should do it.
Thought I did that the first time. Okay, so can everyone see it? Or can you see it? I've been looking at it all day. So basically, all of these, the account number correlates with the account numbers that you guys see on the G&L that you guys look at every month and every quarter and each year. It's the same account numbers or codes that correlate with the expenses, the expense transaction reports that I print out and that you guys look at. And it's basically the account for each one of these departments, I guess I should say, or sub-departments. So what I did is basically just took the 2024 approved budget. These numbers are what were approved in town meeting for the budget. The total of all of these numbers equals what our total appropriated budget was, $1,009,300. Of that, we spent $991,860 without taking into consideration any of the emergency road repairs. Okay. So essentially what I did is I put in all of the expenditures through all of the checks that have been entered, including all December invoices received to date. Again, keep in mind that the 2024 expenditures could change slightly if we get more December invoices in, because we're trying to capture everything in the correct calendar year. So right now, I mean, I could go through all of them, but right now I'm just going to go through the subtotals. So the subtotal for executive, we spent $7,254, which is about $500 over budget. Subtotal town clerk, we spent just over $18,000, which is about $5,000 under budget.
And how does next year compare in terms of numbers of elections? Because I know that is a
Makes a difference. So
Right.
I'll kind of explain that as I go through what I have for the proposed budget. Is it easier for me to give like 2024 budget, 2024 expenditures, and then the proposed 2025 budget? Is it easier for me to do that than you're kind of getting everything at once?
Go ahead. Try to hold my questions.
Well, I can do each account instead of,
I mean, do you wanna, how were you planning on going, like, having the discussion about each department and?
I can do it however you want. What's
Sure.
easier for you guys? Do it once, each department at one time, all the way through? Okay.
Going
That
down,
works.
if-
Okay.
if you-
So elected officials doesn't change, that's the select board's pay. Advertising, I went up slightly. We have the extra special town meeting, so that's advertising. If we have any advertising for any other special meetings, the budget hearings, the things like that. So that captures a lot of different costs, and everything is getting more expensive, so we've spent $1,357. I felt $1,500 was a decent number to go with. Printing services, I kept it $1,000. Dues and subscriptions, we spent $225. Or $224. I felt $225 was adequate. This does include like the host win subscriptions, because the website does fall under executive and not finance. So trying to make sure that we categorize things where they need to be and kind of get those correct. Executive office supplies, most things are covered under financial admin, but some things, if we get something for town meeting or something like that, it is not. So I plugged $100 in there, and then $125 for other charges and expenses, which ranges anywhere from mileage, special postage for stuff that's sent out by the select board. This is mainly select board stuff. So I looked at that budget and I came up with an increase of $200. Town clerk and tax collector are going to be a little special this year. Last year, the petition warrant article passed to combine those two positions from two separate positions into one. So the election this year will be for a combined position of tax collector, town clerk. Right now, the town clerk position is hourly. I do not have a deputy. So expenses were roughly $10,000. I did do some research, and I may have the email in here. I didn't send the file. I meant to. Of surrounding towns, similar in size, similar in area, that have a combined town clerk tax collector position. So let me get through this, and then we can go back to that, because that's going to be more of a complex conversation. Town clerk, we had an $11,000 budget. We spent just under $10,000, and I put in $12,500.
Because it would be good to have a deputy,
It would be good to have a deputy,
and
but
that accounts for a deputy.
no, it doesn't. Because you have to, the deputy has to be a resident of the town, and the deputy has to go through state training to be able to do the vehicle registrations, and I haven't found anybody. Nobody's jumping up at the opportunity. Election workers, we had a budget of $7,500. We had a lot of election workers last year who chose to donate their time, so they weren't paid, and it saved us quite a bit of money. So we spent just about $5,800. I'm saying the proposed budget for election workers should be $1,000. Aside from the special town meeting we have Thursday, we only have our regular town meeting. Unless we get a bunch of residents who petition for special town meetings left and right, I don't see the need for a hefty election worker budget. We don't have any elections this year, so we should be good. Technical services and advertising, we had a $300 budget last year. I put in $200. We had no expenditures last year, but it doesn't mean that we won't. Dues and subscriptions, there's town clerk, town clerk groups, that by state statute we belong to, and we have to pay for dues there, so I just rounded it up to 50. We had a $48 expenditure last year. Town clerk supplies, we had a $750 budget last year. We spent $627. I left it where it was. Other supplies, this could be mileage, it could be having to purchase something special, it could be, I guess, anything. We had a $2,650 budget. Last year we spent $500, so I went conservative and went down to $1,000. For election, this is generally election materials we have to buy or meals that the town provides for those who work the elections. We spent $1,083 last year. I bumped it up to $3,500 because House Bill 1265, which we briefly talked about before, is going to require us to use a tablet for the one for all handicap voting for town meetings and town elections now going forward. Right now they are doing a program which will end in July that allows the towns to use the state's tablet. However, that ends in July, and right now there's not been any extension of that program, nor has anyone at the state level made the decision as to whether towns are going to have to purchase their own tablets or not. They're hoping that they can upgrade their tablets and then push the old tablets down to the towns to be able to use, but we won't know until we know. We also have a $600 programming fee that we will be required to pay every time we have a town meeting or special meeting, because the tablets will have to be programmed. So the subtotal for town clerk went up slightly, under $1,000, up to $19,000. Well, it went up from the expenditures, but it's about $4,000 less than last year's budget. For financial admin, for accounting, which is our bookkeeping, they also do our payroll, and then for our auditor, we had a budget of $27,800. We used $17,200. I lowered it a little bit to $25,000. I haven't gotten a number from our accountant yet to know what our audit's going to cost us this year. Tax collector fees, we have a budget of $3,000. We had expenditures of just over $2,000. I zeroed that out. Tax collector permanent position wages. Last year, this was a salaried position. It paid $90 a week. We had a budget of $9,051, and we spent $5,333. That was the tax collector wages, along with deputy wages for whatever hours the deputy paid. And again, we'll get back to the proposed budget amount. Elected officials, there was a $525 expenditure there. I think it was done in error when they started doing payroll early on. I'm waiting for them to fix those corrections, but I kept the budget at $0. Town administrator, we had a budget of $65,835. 2024 expenditure was $64,684, and I'm asking for a 3% raise, which would take it up to $67,810 for 2025. That'll come up with more discussion. The treasurer, we had a $3,355 budget. We spent $2,864. I left the budget at $3,355, which is basically the treasurer's salary and then some hourly time for the deputy. For professional and technical services for financial admin, we had a budget of $8,180. We spent $20,884. I decreased that to $17,500. We had some IT things that we had done last year, you know, like the Wi-Fi extenders and the internet in the computer cafe and the gym, that got coded here. Plus there was a slight increase in the cost for Avatar, which provides us with our software for town clerk, tax collector, and assessing. So I put that at 17.5. Registry fees, these are the fees for the Coas County Registry. I put that at $325, slightly over what we spent. For other purchase services, dues and subscriptions, this includes NHMA, NRRA, NCC, the tax collectors group, so on and so forth. We had a budget of $2,804. We spent $4,005, and I put the proposed budget at $4,000. For office supplies and equipment, we spent $5,000. Again, we had some additional purchases. We had a computer monitor that died. We had other purchases that we made, smaller purchases that just piled up, added up. So I have that budget at $2,000. For postage, we had a $2,500 budget. We had 4 elections and we had a lot of mailings. So we spent $2,800 and I decreased that to $2,000.
So those mailings include the absentee ballots?
The absentee ballots, some of the mailings, some of the absentee ballots were included in that, but like all of the tax, anything tax collector mailing, so anything that has to be sent out, certified, return receipt, da-da-da, I mean, that's $9, $10 a piece. So we spend the money. Now granted, the property owner reimburses us the money when they pay their taxes and fees and such, but this is just the expenditure side.
Yeah, this is just the
So-
appropriation.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So is 2,000 sufficient, I guess is my question.
I think it should be. We are cutting single checks for multiple invoices. I try to group them and get together and kind of wait a little bit longer on some of the invoices. Plus, we're not mailing out pay stubs or paychecks. Most people, with the exception of 2 or 3, are direct deposit, and the direct deposit pay stubs, they either come pick them up or they go to Ron, and Ron hands them out at the monthly meetings to the firefighters. So, I mean, that adds up pretty fast, so we should be okay with 2,000. So the financial admin budget went up approximately $9,000 from 126 to 135. For assessing, we had a $15,000 budget. We spent $21,000. We'll keep the $15,000 budget.
The 21 included the rear valve, right?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
But it had DRA helping us, right?
It
For part
did.
of the year, which is probably more expensive.
Yep. And then other services, we had a budget for 21.6, which is what I think would have gone towards the reval, annual amount. We spent 12.4. Their reval contract is a little bit different. We don't pay until that reval starts taking place. So I decreased that to 12.5. That helps cover Avatar support, assessing the software, the support for Avatar, anything that I have to do with the Laredo system, which is the storage system for Coas County Register. So subtotal assessing went down by about $9,000. Legal fees, usually we don't hit the budget max on this one. Right now we're at $26,000. We still have a couple months of invoices that haven't been processed for our attorney, so I went to 35. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I was looking at that.
I don't
November
really know.
invoice. We don't have the December one yet.
No.
I didn't look at the total, I just was looking at the itemized items and I've got questions.
So subtotal legal went up 15,000. That was really a guess on my part, so I'll need input from you guys, especially for that one. Personnel admin, this is all of the benefits, the taxes, Social Security, Medicare, so on and so forth. Health benefits are going to be I took into consideration the fact that we will likely end up having to hire, at least temporarily, some highway workers for the summer to get a lot of this mitigation work done. So I haven't looked very deep into the regulations on what type of benefits temporary or seasonal workers are required to get. So I increased that slightly, I think by like $10,000. And single coverage cost for the town is almost $1,000 a month, so it doesn't add much. Social Security is what it is, as is Medicare. Workers' comp, our renewal went up by about $2,000, $1,500, up to $13,200 from $11,800. The other employee benefits, we had a budget of $37,400. I decreased that to $8,000. That's our other benefits, our short-term, long-term disability, along with the life insurance that we provide to full-time employees. And then $40,000 for the retirement plan. So personnel admin went up slightly, about $13,000 from $144,600 up to $157,200.
And health insurance went up by, was it 11% or?
It was a
13%?
double-digit increase, and so did, the short-term disability slightly went down, and long-term disability and life stayed the same, but yeah, the health insurance went up again. For planning board, they have their technical services advertising, which is basically just advertising for their meetings. We had a budget of $750, we spent $1,100, so I went up to $1,000.
Because it seems like you're getting more development and things coming in, right?
Well, one was a big one, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
wherever there's a public
Two,
hearing,
actually.
that has to be advertised, so
right.
that makes sense. I mean, I think things were really quiet for a few years there during COVID.
Yeah,
Other supplies is $250. We spent $290, so I left it at $250. That would be things like postage for sending out certified return receipt letters to all the abutters and things like that. So planning board went up by $250. Government buildings, we had plugged $500 just for cleaning here and there. We spent $342, so I lowered it to $350. Electricity, we had $10,000. I don't really know why we had $10,000, because we spent $3,100 and put a proposed budget of $4,000.
And is that just a municipal building? I'm thinking if we do the solar panels.
I don't think that's just the municipal building. I think it's government buildings, period.
Okay. But again, when you do the solar panels and there's net metering, we also have to pay our electricity usage should be less.
Yep.
And then the excess we generate will get on the revenue side.
Property services, apparently I stopped somewhere here. I must have gotten interrupted. So property services are probably gonna be similar to what we had before. I mean, our mowing is, $5,500, $6,000 a year. And then you have, little bits of maintenance here and there. So I would probably keep this at $12,000. We did have like the door repair and some minor repairs and stuff that we did this past year in 2024. Yeah. Heating oil, even with our budgeted amount with CN Brown, we went over. So of course this one's always difficult to figure out. I would probably increase it just a little. I don't know, maybe 10,000.
That would be done where we've already spent more and we had a mild winter last year.
No, I mean, it really depends on how much the building's being used. I don't usually crank things up when I'm here. and usually it's just in the room, in my office there.
Like maybe 12,000? I mean, as a first pass?
Sure.
What do you think, Eric?
Okay. Repairs and maintenance, we had 7,000, we've got 10, 8, 12 is what we spent, so. We still haven't gotten an answer from the flooring contractor regarding some of the peeling tiles. They came in and replaced a bunch of them. He said there's definitely moisture in the floor. There's definitely moisture in the floor if you go into one of the closets, locked closets there, and you can see it. So I'm not really sure what we're gonna do there. He had said that they were gonna come back and do a coring test, but I've not heard from them, so it's on my list of people to contact. So I don't know if we wanna put 10,000 in here.
Maybe it's a placeholder, we can come back and
Okay.
need to cut. What do you think, Eric?
I mean, it puts us about where we were last year. Cemetery stipend is 1,000. Advertising and technical services, Terry, I included the $6,000 that we anticipated for the survey cost for St. John's Cemetery. Repairs and maintenance, I think you had like 5,000 or something like that for mowing, but it was actually 6,400.
Oh, I had, I think that you had sent an email as of October, it was about 4,500.
Okay,
And
so
that's
that
why I
could have
come
been
up with that.
so this includes mowing and then a couple $1,000s for fence and gate repair.
Gates and fences.
Because we talked about redoing the fence, right?
There's, well, at least repairing the fence pieces that have been, deteriorating.
And what about between that one property, we talked about even maybe a privacy fence?
Extend,
Right next to the trailer there.
right. Yeah, I'm not sure if I included that. I just included the rails, posts and rails, like what it has been. And I think at the time that we first did that estimate, it was to extend that fence all the way to that corner.
Of course, the price of lumber is gonna go up
It probably would.
sky high, thanks to the fires in California, but
Yeah.
unless everyone decides to do concrete. So 8830 for property services for the cemetery, and then 350 for patriotic. It looks like we did put the cemetery flags under there.
Okay, so that one is separate from the other patriotic category?
I don't have anything else under patriotic. I have recreational.
Because recreation had a patriotic line, didn't it? Is what I'm remembering. But it could have been that we had it categorized wrong too.
Maybe. We had a budget in recreation though for $529, but we didn't spend anything.
It's nice to get the categorization of things cleaned up.
Yes,
We tried.
yes.
the last
Yeah,
5 years.
under culture and recreation, for 2024, it was patriotic purposes, it was 350. The appropriation for 2023 was 350, and then recommended for 2024 was 300. So I don't know if that might be flags for the municipal building,
Could be,
perhaps?
Yeah.
could be. Because we don't do anything else. I mean, not that the town pays for.
Yeah.
Okay, so the cemetery budget went up approximately 5,000. Insurance went up by about 4,000.
Remember that.
police wages, I mean, generally, I know I haven't gotten the rest of the invoices for them, for last year. They're really, really, really slow invoicing. Like 3-4 months later, I'll get invoices for them. So, I mean,
Should we leave it at 15,000? Because that's a certain, like, that's 4 hours per week of
yeah,
patrols and stuff, all right?
yeah, and we don't always
And they
get
haven't
4
upped the
hours a
price?
week, but no. No. Same,
We have lately, I think.
yes. Well, when they get calls, it's not considered patrols. We get a dedicated 4 hours that's not, doesn't include any calls that they respond
Well,
to.
the other day, they were in front of the house for over 4 hours.
Good. Need them to be in Harriman. And then the technical other services, the $2,500, that's dispatch. So we need to put that in there. So the police budget stays the same. I haven't gotten a number from Ron yet for ambulance services. Whitefield has their meeting tonight, so I should probably have that tomorrow. Last year, they had said that they were gonna charge us $20,000, but our bill was only $17,500, so maybe we could get lucky again. We'll see.
Do you want to put in a placeholder?
I was gonna say, I'm gonna put in 20,000 as a placeholder, just to repeat what we had last
So we
year.
can see the total.
Ron's budget was pretty much the same. It went up ever so slightly. Permanent wages, temporary wages are the same. Phone and internet is the same. Electric is the same. Heat and oil is the same.
They went up because of floods.
Yeah, I mean, like, and fuel, that was a big thing. That went up. I mean, they, helped the highway department and, yeah. Equipment maintenance went up by $1,000. Dues and subscriptions are the same. Training is the same.
The training was a lot last year. Was that unusual?
There were some programs that the department decided to take advantage of by applying for some grants. So there should be a grant coming in for 10,000 or so of this 12,700. So yeah, and that was kind of a end of the year, last minute decision type of November, December. So there should be a grant coming in for that. EMS went up a little bit from last year's budget. Office supplies went down slightly. Supplies, maintenance, equipment maintenance went down slightly. Gasoline went up slightly. Tools and equipment stayed the same. Gear stayed the same. Reporting went up slightly. New equipment. We must have left that blank because I'm balanced. That may have been moved somewhere else. With the new codes, like the descriptions, when they set them up, the descriptions were slightly different, so they were confusing in some areas, and Ron's like, I don't know, put it in equipment somewhere. So that's why you might see that we had a $4,500 budget for equipment maintenance, but we spent $5,600. And then on tools and equipment, we had a $3,000 budget, but we only spent $1,000 because it was trying to figure out where's the best place to put some of the stuff. So
Do we have ongoing expenses with the boat and maintenance for the boat?
no, we had to purchase a couple batteries for the boat, and that was really it. I think
We
it was
don't use
just
the budget for next
2.
year.
No. He didn't put anything in the budget for it, unless he is including that under equipment, which he could be. So his budget went up slightly, $500 from last year. Public safety, we spent $2,200. I'm gonna put $2,200 in here again. We have to do the mitigation plan. It's time to renew the mitigation plan, so we have to pay a portion of that. Hopefully we could do it with time and not funds.
Didn't we get a grant for, because we have to redo our emergency management plan,
That's the
right?
plan I'm talking about,
Okay.
yep.
We have a grant to cover some of that.
Yep.
But we'll see it as an expense though,
Correct.
so we need to budget that as an appropriation.
Correct.
So is it 2,200 sufficient?
Yeah, because I don't know if that's a reimbursable grant or if they pay. Let me find out. Public safety, airport. If I'm reading the information that Jay sent correctly, it was like $250, and I'm like, that can't possibly be right. I'm gonna budget for 500 just in case. I don't know. I was gonna call in.
Yeah, I know that the airport budget went down,
Okay, so,
but I don't know, if he reported 250, it probably is.
well, and I'll confirm with them and then I can modify the number. I just thought that's strange. Not many things go down anymore.
They were able to get fees that covered things better.
Okay, highway department. For permanent positions, we had a budget of 155, we spent 167. The proposed budget for next year is 208. Taking into consideration the need for hiring some temporary people to get the mitigation work done. The nice part about this is that we will get that money back from FEMA. They provide 100% of 100% of the repair funds are available for mitigation use. So all of the work that is done for mitigation will be 100% reimbursed by FEMA. So it's kind of hard to swallow, but after talking with Ron and Adam, it kind of seems like it's a really good opportunity for the town to fix things like they need to be fixed so that we don't get into this situation again. It's just gonna be a long, tough summer.
Because if, we might get reimbursed for like 50,000 of that, but we still have to carry it as a 208 as an appropriation.
No, if we spend 200, well, okay, yeah, the 208 is labor. So if we spend $50,000 in labor installing mitigation, we get reimbursed $50,000
Right,
for the
but we
mitigation.
still have to show that.
We still have to show the
that as an
expense.
appropriation.
Yes,
So the reimbursement comes in as revenue.
yes.
So we might want another little cheat sheet that shows some of these offsets.
Okay.
Just to help keep it straight.
So that people are aware of where their money is gonna come from.
Right, and, it looks like there's a huge increase, but it's really not, because the net is gonna be about the same.
Right.
Or whatever it is.
Or
gonna
less.
be. Yeah.
Um,
Like even the 167,000, we should get some back from FEMA,
correct,
because that was a lot of overtime.
yes. Well, and basically everything from the day of the storm through most, not everything, most things through like the 1st of October was all repair work.
Yeah.
So I think I said that our labor was like 52,000 or something, or I don't, maybe it was 40,000. I don't know. I've been looking at numbers all day, but of that, we get 75% of that back.
So these
Plus
numbers,
burden.
expenditures, like on the wages, show what part of the flood repair.
Say that again?
The wages, 167, include the flood repair labor,
Yes.
but the other expenses you said are not included, like the gravel and all of that?
Correct.
Okay.
So I did not, there are 3 expenses in emergency road repair that are not coded in the emergency road repair code. So we set up a capital account to capture all of those expenses. But 3 of the expenses, 3 categories were not included in that. 1 is labor. 2 would be any benefits, going along with labor, burden labor. Any materials that the town already owned. And then a lot of the fuel. All of that was still charged to fuel. I kept track of it on the other end so that I could say, this is what we're saying approximately the floods cost us, but they're in the correct category in the accounting system.
Thank you.
Highway telephone, decreased that by 300. Technical service, medical services, we have 300. I increased it to 350. When we hire people, they have to do a drug screen. We get random drug screens, so we pay for those. Technical services and rentals, I left that at 5,000. We've got some unknowns with a lot of this mitigation work, as far as like needing to rent like cranes or rent, to get head walls and stuff into place. So I said it's better safe than sorry to have it in there and not use it than to need it and not have it. So I decreased that from 6,000 to 5,000. Electricity, I kept the same. Went up slightly for heat and oil, taking into consideration that we spent quite a few months without a really good boiler. So even though we use wood for that, sometimes we have to purchase the wood. So
The new boiler should be more efficient.
absolutely, yeah. So I increased that slightly. Repairs and maintenance, we had a $2,000 budget previously. After going over this really closely with Adam, we spent $38,000, and he feels really strongly about repairs being done inside our shop when we can, but he also takes into consideration that some of our equipment is old and it would cost us twice as much time and the same amount of money to do it in our shop than to send it out. Like one of the trucks had to have the transmission completely replaced. That was $12,000. So we increased that to $20,000, and
So that includes equipment, not just building.
yes, that includes equipment, and it is mostly equipment. Yeah. $10,000 for other services. That's usually the roadside mowing that gets done that didn't get done this year because we would really need it. Dues and subscriptions, $250. That's to the road agent places, groups. Maintenance and repairs, we had a budget of 2,000. We spent 6,300. We increased the budget to 10,000. Lots of issues with improperly maintained equipment and vehicles, which is what led to the costly repairs. So he said he'd rather have a heftier maintenance and repair supply budget so that he can make sure that they have what they need in order to maintain the equipment and the vehicles and take care of them like they should be.
To the appropriate preventative.
Yep. Gasoline, 30,000. We didn't change that. We spent over $41,000 in fuel this year, but a lot of that was due to the flood. Gravel, we changed the budget to 0. We felt that we could combine the gravel with the road material code because really they go together. So we increased the road material budget from 13.2 to 38, which takes into consideration most of the gravel budget. We didn't spend a lot on gravel this year because the floods.
Because most of it was in that flood.
Yeah. Department salt, 17,000. I left that where it is because it's kind of an unknown. Department sand, I also left that where it was. Again, one of those unknowns. We get it a lot cheaper when we can haul it ourselves. So, department supplies for the shop, we left that at 3,500, or we increased that to 3,500. We had a $2,000 budget. We spent about 4,000. Again, figuring if things are put on a regular maintenance schedule, you're going to go through supplies faster. Liquid mag, 15,000. Use that to help seal the roads. Pipe and permit, we included that in road materials. We just bought a bunch of pipe because of the flood, so it's all being paid for mostly by FEMA. Repair parts, decrease this to
Can I just go
20,000.
back?
Yep.
So when we have to have something in the budget as an appropriation to be able to spend on that line,
You have to have something.
is that to this level of detail? Or do we need, where you've got zeros, do we need to have
Well,
like $100?
I don't think so, because it's in the highway budget and it's not broken down to that level
level
of
at
detail at DRA. I mean, we could put $100 in there, but I don't think I've ever seen anything spent on pipe and permit since I've been here, except for this year, and it's all,
FEMA. And I think you're right, it's the subtotals.
Yeah.
Because that's what gets reported out to
Yep.
DRA. Okay.
repair parts went down to 20,000. Again, doing the proper maintenance should lead to less repairs. Uniforms went up to 1,200, anticipating additional employees, so they'll be able to get some uniforms there. And then we got the new excavator and we'll get the new backhoe. Those are approximately $26,000 a year for the lease to own payments. So it's $52,000. So the budget went up from 384 or from 347.4 to 465.9, with expenditures of 385. So. Streetlights stayed at 1,700. Transfer station, we had a budget of 14, we spent 16, we went up to 18. We figured an 18-hour work week, $28 an hour average. Some making more, some making less. $1,000 for the professional technical services or other services. $500 for electricity. I left the 40,000 in there for disposal fees and transportation. I didn't work out anything with the new numbers that we have at this point. We certainly can. Training is 200 for recertifications. Supplies, maintenance, repairs, 2,500. And then other supplies, 2,000. We had some repairs to, I think, the semi or some of the boxes or something. What did Wayne fix? Or did he not fix anything out? I don't remember.
We were going to have him come in and
Do the
take
semi.
the legs off of the.
Yeah, we were gonna drop the trailer
Yep,
to the ground level.
right,
That never got done.
right.
We were
The
gonna
forklift?
get some storage containers at one point, but
Yep.
that didn't happen either.
Well, I know Tom he was gonna be looking at the pricing of the storage containers, cause there's like the one single use or multiple use, and
Yeah, I have one container out there that we keep the electronics and the tires in,
okay,
and I really need two. I
Yeah.
need one for each.
okay. So we've got some money in the budget there, and then we have a capital reserve fund for transfer station stuff too, so.
Mhm.
I know that Mark in last week's meeting said that he would come and look at the station and make recommendations on
Yeah, I'm
things that-
gonna see him tomorrow.
Did you let Adam know? Cause I haven't.
I can.
Yeah, we should
I'll let him know.
We should just let him know,
Yeah.
since he kind of
Yep.
has his umbrella over that.
Mhm.
Thank you. So transfer station went up slightly, from 58.2 to 64.9. Sewer, telephone, we need to put 300 in there. That's for the alarm system. Payments to Lunenburg, they went up last year by almost like $900 a quarter. I haven't received anything from Lunenburg stating that they're going up again, but I guess we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Because we were wondering what would happen when they started actually measuring the flow.
And we've
Maybe we could get an update on that.
almost been a year, almost been doing that for a year, so that might be a good question to ask. Maybe it's a letter that the board could write to.
We should have another meeting with them.
Now, what are they doing?
So, this is a sewer. We put in the new flow meter and all the electronics. We had a grant for that Jeanette wrote and was funded. So now the flow that what we actually send over to Lunenburg for sewer is measured, where before they were just estimating how much they charged us without really knowing. So now they should have real numbers. So we should check and see. The other thing is we were gonna work with them and work with the state on developing a plan so that we could plan for future maintenance and appropriately charge the users of the sewer system.
Yeah, and we
Get a
got,
plan in that, and we haven't moved forward on that.
no, that's when the flood happened. We were
Yeah.
meeting, and then I think we were supposed to meet in May, and one of the two guys with the water agency moved to a different position, and the other guy canceled, and then July came, and
So we should put that on the,
it's still on a
To-do
sticky
list.
on my computer. Yeah.
so I guess if we spend 18,000, it seems like 23 is high, and let's see how it's going to go up.
Well, we spent 18, but we haven't gotten the fourth quarter bill yet.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's like $4,800 or $4,300, so that's not all the bills yet.
Okay.
Disposal, I'm trying to think what we spent $3,800 on, and that may be when we were having issues, the alarm kept going off and we had to have them come pump.
Yeah.
So we had a budget of 300, I put it at 350, because I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. Electricity, I put it at 750. Sewer, or heat, I put at 1,000, just because you don't know. And that's propane. Dog licenses, we spent $585. I've been trying to narrow down the amount of dog licenses I buy, because we were buying like 500, and when I first started doing it, we had 2 full boxes left over, and I'm like, this is silly, you can't use them for anything. Like, you might as well just throw them in the metals dumpster. And so I bought one less last year, but I think I might have part of a box left over from last year, but anyway.
But you're specific to the year, right?
Yes. Yeah. So 575. Health, technical, other services. These are the services within the community that ask for appropriations for our support.
Like Tri-County Cap.
Tri-County Cap and they've been going for a while, but we did get a new one from CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates. $1,000 from Home Health and Hospice, $750 from the Amanuset Community Health Services, $1158.72 from White Mountain Mental Health. I would assume that we'll do $500 for the veterans, North Country veterans, like we usually do. $452 for the Chamber of Commerce, and then Tri-County Cap is the same, $2,333. And amazingly, we've been able to keep our direct welfare payments fairly low. I'm just gonna knock on wood right now.
Paying to those other agencies really helps us with our welfare.
It can, if we do proper counseling and help guide them in the direction of the agencies that are there to help instead of just cutting a check. It really can be helpful, and I think that that's made a huge impact on us not paying a lot of money to house homeless and to help with whatever the welfare needs, direct assistance needs are. We did have a couple this year that we paid out, that we helped. They did sign repayment agreements, because we do ask that, and they've not paid back. So one did. I think we had 4, and I think 1 paid back. So.
And that payback shows up under revenue, not under this.
Correct.
Okay.
Recreation supplies, I didn't buy anything. We had a resident who donated a brand spanking new American flag because he didn't like the way ours was faded. So.
But we should at least budget $100 here.
Yes.
Because
Yeah. That way we could spend if we need to. So I could swear that I got the library budget.
Yeah.
I think it was handed to me, and I can't find it. So I need a copy of it, please. I looked everywhere.
I wish you'd said something earlier when I saw you.
Well, I didn't know then, because I was still working on this up to like 6:20.
It's the same as last year. It's the same amount.
Okay.
We did not change the amount.
Then I'm gonna plug that, but can you,
I will go find it again.
sorry. I looked everywhere. I'm like, it's in a file somewhere. It's probably in my FEMA stuff that I've been,
Because I think we sent that about 2 months ago to you.
well, did you send it?
I handed it to you.
Then, yeah. If you could get me another copy, that'd be great.
I'll do that.
Then at least I have it. Thank you. Conservation Commission asked for a budget of 2,000 for, they wanted to do some increased communications on conservation easements. And then it also covered dues to different organizations, speaker, education expenses, conference attendance. So that was his request. I put nothing in for debt services. I will ask, I'm just gonna put 800 in now for a placeholder, but I will ask Nancy. We will have debt services for 2025, depending on how long we keep
The TAM.
the TAM.
And so our other debt that we had was paid off, right? Because I always got it mixed up. We had the backhoe and lease, which was a,
We had a backhoe lease, which is gone because
Yeah.
we're getting the new backhoe.
Right.
And we have an excavator lease.
and it may have been that we paid it off a year ago.
What?
There was another loan out there.
Do you remember, Carol?
For which one?
The loan.
I thought that was the year before.
Might have been the year before that we paid it
Yeah.
off. Okay.
What was it? Loan for what?
Was the excavator? No.
No, it was a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
We had one more year left on the backhoe. 2025 was gonna be the last payment on the backhoe.
But that was a lease purchase, not a loan.
Correct.
It might have been a couple of years ago that we paid off.
I was gonna say, I'm not aware of any loans since I've been here, except for we did one TAN loan and we paid it back the same year.
It was a piece of equipment. I don't remember what it was. The grader, something to do with the grader?
Maybe.
It must have been a lease to own?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I would have to check.
I'm not aware of any other loan, so. So from 1,009,300, we went to 1,175,151, which is an increase of almost 166, with some plugged numbers.
What's the percentage of that? 16%. I'm not calculating in my head.
16%.
She said 16%.
I mean, not exactly, but.
Right.
That's a pretty big increase.
3%. Again, a lot of it is highway.
Yeah. And that's where it might be useful to just, like, have that as a total and then subtract out what we'll get reimbursed for.
Yep.
Just to help the select board and people in town understand.
Yep.
I'm
Okay.
not seeing a lot of fluff in there.
Nope.
But we are.
All right, so
Ideas for cutting?
No, there's not really room for it.
just gonna pull that so I can.
Thank you, Jeanette. This is a great, it's so clear and organized.
Well, I started doing it the other way, and then I'm like, it's gonna be so difficult to try and explain all these different calculations and why this went to that. And I mean, I certainly can if you need me to drill down into something and you're gonna ask why are you proposing this or that? I certainly can. I just, as a
No, I think
initial,
The new system is really paying off, just in terms of being able to pull that together and.
yes, but as the initial presentation, it just seems better to start with an overview and then give a drill down on what you guys need, as opposed to trying to stuff it all in.
Oh, Jeanette.
Yeah.
It's an email. I sent it by email.
See, and I didn't get a chance to look because it was 6:20, and I'm like, I'll just ask her tonight.
Yeah, it was, I suddenly realized I could access it from my phone. And it was back on October 29th when I sent it to you.
Yeah. That's fine. I'll find it. Thank you.
If you don't find it, I can just forward it now if you want.
Sure. That'll save me from having to look for it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna let me do that. If you guys give me 45 seconds, I'm gonna go to that computer and I'll send the file to myself so I can go over the explanation for the town clerk tax collector thing.
Let's take a quick break while she's doing that.
Can I ask a question right now while Beth is here? Okay. So what was just presented, that's what you think the budget will be?
That's the preliminary.
That's preliminary, but that's actually not what we're taxed on because this doesn't consider the revenues. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So even though this shows a 16% increase, that doesn't mean that it'll be a 16% increase in taxes.
No. Especially when you consider FEMA.
waiting for it to open. I already have it open. Sorry. Okay, so with the town warrant, or the petition warrant article passing last year to combine the tax collector town clerk position, it means that that position becomes one. Currently, the tax collector is a salaried position, and the town clerk position is an hourly position. So in combining the position, it needs to be determined what that salary or hourly rate should be. If it's salary, then all of it would be salary. If it's hourly, then all of it would be hourly. So I asked some of the town clerk tax collectors in the state for information on how much do people get paid, what do they do, how many parcels of land do they have, what is the population, how many dogs do they have, is it one person or two people in their office, full-time, part-time, all of those details. So I got, I'll take the filter off here so you guys can see that I have, all these different towns and all these different counties that responded with information, and the pay scale ranges anywhere from $18, $20 an hour up to $80,000 a year. So I figured that the best way to start looking at it or drilling down is to look by county. So I started with Coos County, and then I said, okay, what towns have a similar population to Dalton? Milan came up as the closest with a population of 1,340. They have about 2,300 motor vehicles a year. I haven't pulled that number yet. They have two office workers. The deputy gets paid $16 an hour. She works about 16 hours a week. They have 1,277 tax parcels. We have about the same. Tax bills are issued semi-annually. They print them themselves. They have 300 dogs. We're probably 3 to 350. They have 800 voters. We're slightly under that, or I think we're 50 or 60 under that as of the last election. I don't remember, but they don't do water bills. We do water bills quarterly. And that tax collector, town clerk, is making $20.50 an hour.
She made it so.
It is a combined town tax collector, town clerk position. And then if we go down to row number 80, which is also a combined tax collector, town clerk position, that's Northumberland. Their population is higher. She gets paid $50,000 a year. That's her salary. 20,000 motor vehicles seems kind of high. That would mean each person would have roughly 8 or 9, which seems like a lot of vehicles for each person, but I could be wrong. They have they have a bunch of companies out there, so I guess that could be right.
Is the 50,000 per year based on 40 hours a week?
Yes, I think this is a full-time position. It'll show as I go over to the right. The deputy makes $15 an hour. There's 2 people in the office. They also had, in Northumberland, they also had one person that came in and specifically did vehicle registrations. They had a motor vehicle agent. Deputy worked 20 hours a week, made $15 an hour. They had 1,500 tax parcels. semi-annual tax billings, they printed them themselves, they had water bills, they did quarterly, 700 dogs, 1,300 voters. I think that was a full-time position. That would be my assumption, it doesn't say. Some of them say part-time, others do say full-time. So that's probably a full-time position. And then the other one would be Stratford. So Stratford, their population is less at 680. They have probably half as many motor vehicles. Deputy was making $14.32 an hour. She worked 16 hours a week. They had about 1,000 tax parcels, semi-annual billing, self-printed, only 100 dogs, only 332 voters.
So right now, the town clerk, spending how many hours a week?
The town clerk is roughly 11 to 12 hours a week. And then the tax collector is weekly. If you're not looking at doing leaning, deeding, any of the tax bills, you're looking at 1 to 2 hours a week. But those time periods, doing tax bills, leaning, deeding, it could be anywhere from 5 hours to, I've spent 20 hours doing tax collect stuff before. It just depends on what I'm needing to do. So the Stratford position was a part-time position.
And the 5 to 20 hours, I mean, when you're really doing tax bills, is that like, tax bills is twice a year. So is that like for a month you have more time on tax collection? And then the deeding and leading would be additional.
Well, actually preparing the warrants and doing the tax bills, you're probably looking at, that would probably be 5 to 8 hours that week. But then collecting, I mean, I could easily spend, when we get like a lot of payments in, I could easily spend a couple hours entering payments. So that would be maybe 5 hours a week.
Like 5 to 10 hours per week even?
Yeah, at most. And then I'd probably be spending the same when I'm doing leaning.
And that would be for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks?
What?
That you'd have 5 to 10 hours a week just with the taxes coming in. Is that like a month?
Yeah.
Probably 4 weeks.
Yeah. I tried to run a report to see how many hours I actually worked for tax collector, but they don't enter it since it's a salaried position. So I'm gonna have to go back to my time cards, which I can definitely do. I'll definitely go back to the time cards so I have that. And I can say in 2024, I spent this many hours doing tax collect. I spent this many hours doing town clerk. And the town clerk hours, they put in there because it's paid hourly. But tax collector, they don't. But I keep track of it on my time card.
So the combined is probably anywhere from a low end of 12 to 22 hours, all the way up to high end of
Are you talking about for the combined?
yeah,
Yeah,
14 to 24 hours.
probably. So in addition to how the pay is set up for the tax collector is its salary, it's $90 a week for tax collector. But then in addition to, there's a schedule of fees. So if I have to do additional work to search for a mortgage because a property is gonna be lien, I get paid a flat fee for that. It gets charged to the property owner, and then the property owner pays that when they pay their taxes and or fees, but I get paid that fee. If I have to execute a deed for a property, I get paid a fee. When someone redeems a lien, I get paid a fee. So there's a fee schedule, and it ranges anywhere from $2 to $10 for, depending on what it is I have to do. So for fees last year, I earned $2,024. For tax and under tax.
So probably like an average hours per week over the year would be like 18 hours per week. Does that seem reasonable?
18 hours a week combined for both.
Combined for both? An
Probably,
average.
it's
I mean,
probably pretty close to that.
you know, sometimes some weeks it could be more, some it could be less.
That's probably a decent average, yeah. And that does not include any election stuff. Election stuff is kept separate. So, because election weeks could be 25 hours in and of themselves.
So there are pros and cons of being hourly versus salary.
Absolutely. For both of us,
Yeah.
for both the employee and the town, absolutely.
And in terms of salary range, there's quite a discrepancy there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was one town, I think I might have that in here. I think it might be Stratford. Warner. In Warner, the tax collector gets paid a $30,000 stipend.
It's basically a $30,000 salary, but
That's a lot.
I mean,
They have 1,800 parcels.
so we have how many?
We have about 1,200. That's a lot. And then the town clerk gets paid $48,000 a year. That's a lot. So,
I mean, if we figured 18 hours a week, on average, that'd be like $360 a week, times 52 weeks would be like 18,720
for the combined
for
position,
the combined position, and $20 an hour.
yeah, so. I mean, there was town clerk, I made $9,900 last year. And that's hourly.
And tax collector was how much?
Tax collector was 6,700. This dollar amount includes.
So your combined would be like 16,600. And what was the hourly wage for the town clerk?
18.
What are your thoughts, Rick? So if this was salary, but it doesn't include the election, the election would be
The election
Hourly.
would be separate, it would be hourly.
Where if we did an hourly rate, then it might be cleaner in terms of just keeping track of your time for the different roles.
Well, it's a combined role, so you're not keeping track of different
Right.
roles anymore. The
Right,
only thing you would keep track of is separate, is election.
okay.
Because
And
it's
hourly is-
literally one office, it becomes one office.
Right. And if it's hourly, then it's gonna vary from week to week.
Correct.
And we should set this up for anybody who's in the position.
Well, right.
You know,
Yeah,
just-
and it will be anybody, because I have to run for the position in March.
Right.
So it could be anybody.
Tax collector, is that hourly or is that salary?
Right now,
Yeah.
tax collector's salary, $90 a week. Plus fees.
And there'd still be the fees with the,
Well, it depends. I mean, that's something that you can say, okay, we'll do this, but we want to take away the fee structure.
and then the fees would come to the town?
Then the fees would stay with the town. I
It would
would,
be about the same, like if we went from $18 an hour to 20, and we kept the fees, that would be about the same as what the total, what the combined positions are now, this year, or last year.
and I would caution you, if I don't get reelected, I mean, I'm not saying if I don't get reelected, have caution. I'm just saying, if the decision is made to take the fees away, then you need to make sure that the tax collector understands that it should not be hired out to a service to do those services. Do you know what I'm saying? It would be, unless the board doesn't care. I don't hire out to do those services because we have so few. It's generally not an issue.
Oh, like the other towns hire it out, so it's better to have
There
it
are,
in-house and
yeah.
have,
there are
you know.
companies, as long as the person knows what they're doing and they can find the stuff, right? I mean, a person might just look online and go, oh, I can't find anything. And then if you're not, you have to make sure that you're doing your job, right? Part of doing the tax collector job is properly noticing. So if they're not looking and they're not finding things, they're not able to properly notice. So it puts the town at risk for that.
so it may be better that the person in that position gets the fees, and that's an incentive to be on top of things. Or else to let another service do it and get the fee.
Well, I guess it depends on the person. Some people will say, yeah, I did the search, here's the proof I did the search, I didn't find anything, and get the fee, but it doesn't mean that they really did the search. I don't know. It depends on the integrity of the people doing the job. I don't know. I think it's just like anything else. People could say, I did it, but then you find out 2 years later they didn't do it. You found it stuck under a keyboard somewhere. So,
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I
mean, they're
mean,
elected positions, so.
but
Well, if we
that doesn't preclude that person from doing their job.
Right.
So, I mean, DRA would have to obviously get involved, but yeah.
Well, and I think we could go on an hourly basis if there was a change and we budget for the current office hours. Those seem to be sufficient now.
I think so. People like Saturdays, I'm busy when I do that first Saturday a month.
Yeah.
People like that. I get people that come in. I don't think I've ever had a day that I didn't make more than enough to cover what I was getting paid to be there, so, yeah.
But if it's hourly and down the road the town wants more hours, then that would just flow to more salary.
Correct.
Without having to adjust the salary.
Although the hours are up to the town clerk and the tax collector.
Right.
But I mean, obviously, the positions are there to serve the town, so,
Right, but if you have it salaried, I guess you could have it based on X number of hours per week. But
Sure.
it's gonna vary so much because of the tax collector piece.
well, you could have a minimum.
Yeah. I think I'm leaving that going with hourly, assuming there's gonna be sometimes, an average of 18, that would vary from like 12 to 24 hours, but probably an average of 18. And having that $20 an hour is
How about the incentives? What,
The
the
fees,
fees, and then have the fees as well, because that's kind of an incentive to do a good job, I think. I mean, we could go with, it's 18 now, we could go with 19 an hour plus fees.
would you say an average of 18 hours?
That's what I'm using for my calculations. That'd be about $17,784 a year.
Yeah, $8,000 difference.
And I don't think we can go, given the complexity of the job, I mean, although we have no control over who is elected, it seems like that's a reasonable salary, or if, we wouldn't want to go any lower, I don't believe.
No, I mean, you obviously want to stay somewhat competitive, because even though benefits are offered, benefits aren't offered for that position.
Because it's part-time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts here?
around 19?
I wouldn't want to go less than that.
No.
And I'd be comfortable with 20, so that range I think is. somebody in the two positions that a shepherd had, does that make sense to you? Have it hourly and then? if you
Yeah,
go
I
out,
could
like-
see it either way. I could definitely see it either way. You know, hourly is beneficial because, I mean, then if, you know, you get stuck and you're working on a complex thing, it takes more time, you get compensated for that. You know, salary, you know, you could come into the argument of, well, you're getting paid salary, you should be open more, you should this more, you should that more. You know, people just think more, more, more. And it doesn't necessarily equal better because you've got to have the foot traffic, right? I mean, there's still days that I'll be open and no one comes in here for 2 hours. You know, it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, you know, so I could see it either way. And that's why I said the easiest way to look at this is to look and see what are other towns doing that have the combined position.
And there really isn't a lot of consistency.
No. I would agree. So, yeah. And because you can't compare Dalton with a small town down south, 'cause it's just different. A lot of things are different, so. You know, I think $19-20 an hour is sufficient. I mean, for the skill level that's needed to do it. You know, it's not just pushing some buttons and stamping some papers. There's a lot that goes into it. So it's not a job that I think just anybody could do.
Should we start like 19.5 for this page of the budget? We can always come back to it.
What?
19.5. We can always come back to it once we get the budget.
What else?
You want to sit down with Adam and look at his personnel plan in more detail?
Yeah.
Another meeting?
Okay. Is there anyone else that you wanted to come in to go over? I mean, the numbers haven't changed much. I mean, Adam's really, I mean, he's the department that has had the most drastic change.
Yeah, and then, I mean, the other thing I know Tom wanted to talk to him about was the mowing.
He said there's no way.
I think we need to hear it.
Someone
Yeah.
must have mentioned it to him, because he was like, there's no way. He said, especially if we're supposed to get all this mitigation work done this summer, he's like, there's no way I could get all this mitigation work done with just the crew that I have. He's like, I'm gonna need an operator or two. He's like, and they're not gonna make $20 an hour. You know, they're gonna be $30 an hour people. You know, he said, I'll probably need a driver. I might need another laborer. So,
And I think it's easier to contract it out, because then you've got to have the equipment to do it.
but we've got the equipment.
What we do.
Well, we've got the excavator, we've got the backhoe,
No, I'm talking about
the
the
backhoe
mowing.
loader. Oh, mowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the two quotes that I have are less than what we're paying this year. They're back to last year's prices. And I have one quote that, if we're willing to pay $100 more, they'll give us a contract for a 2-year term. So,
And are they people that you know and are recommended? They know there are issues with the cemetery
Yep.
and having it done.
so, yeah, it just, if we didn't have so much to do, it'd be different, but we've got a lot to do between spring and February of 2026. I might pick up a part-time part-time job as a flagger or something. But,
Well, I think it would be really helpful for me to just see how much of what we're looking at for reimbursement.
okay,
So I can look at that bottom line.
Yep.
That, you know, $155,000 increase may really only be, you know, 25,000. I don't know, I don't have that in my head to know.
Yep.
What we're really looking at in terms of the net, when we tie the revenue in.
okay.
We'll have to look at the revenue piece of the budget too.
Yeah, I haven't even started working on that yet, and I have to rework the FEMA proposal because they want it broken down by section. By like road section, not by road.
Aren't there, like, is there one big project? I know they had projects. I know Smith Road is a separate project.
There are projects, and then within the projects, there are roads, and then within the roads, there are sections. So,
So you got it, you just have to.
yeah, I spent 4.5 hours on Friday putting together the first proposal and did some fine tuning and sent it to the FEMA mitigation guy this morning, and then we had a conversation. And it's funny because I took all of the sections and added them up to give the big proposal, and he's like, nope, I need it by section. So I'm like, okay, sure you do, of course.
Yeah.
So I just have to leave the web, and yeah, it's fine. It's just, it's not that I can't do it, it's just finding the time to do it. I'm happy to say my estimating skills have not left me, which is good. Because Adam's like, I have no idea.
Well, and you just kept a quick track from what I gathered. So you could just, you know, if you rolled it up, you could just roll it back out.
Kind of.
Okay.
Kind of.
I'm being overly optimistic.
Well, I mean, I calculated it and said, okay, we have a total of this many lineal feet at this depth, at this width, at this. So now I have to say, okay, I have to take it by bites instead of by chunks. Sorry. Just
Well, I
finding
think with
the
the new
time.
software that this was a lot less time consuming than it's been in past years.
Yes,
So that's a good thing.
yes.
Of course it is.
Yes. I still had to do some Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, and it's a good thing that I know my way around those, but, yeah, just trying to make sure that everything is as it's supposed to be, so this is, I haven't filled in this part of it, but this is, I figured we would, I
Does
don't know.
that format even still make sense?
Well, that's why I was like, this is what people are used to seeing. Do we still want to use that? I mean, because I know that, you know, or do we just want to roll this one up into the categories that, you know, DRA uses? I mean, you know, the subtotals, all these subtotals here really can plug into here. I think some people look at this and they're just like, that's a lot of numbers. And if you're not used to looking at stuff like this, you're going to look at this and go, I don't even know where to start.
Well, that's
Right.
what I'm saying. I mean, that was something when we didn't have an administrator.
Yeah.
And I had to come up with something, and I was trying to show the variance and also show down below the line where revenue is offsetting things. So like the transfer station, there's revenue that offsets those expenses.
Yeah.
And
Which
that-
I think
those
I'm
would
just
be
going to do a
separate things.
completely different sheet for that, because I think when you try to put it in here, then they look down here and they're like, okay, well, where is this up here? Well, it's not, because that's revenue. It's completely different, you know?
So what I'm trying to say is,
It worked.
I think that worked, but I don't think it's the best
Yeah.
thing, and I would be happy to see something totally new and different. I mean, I think what you just showed us was really good.
Easy to understand.
Yeah.
Well, and
exactly.
that's, you know, I want to make sure that I'm giving adequate information without making it too complicated, but I also want to be able to answer the complicated questions. You know what I mean?
So you had the
Like,
backup
was that
to it.
easy for you to understand, Kyle?
Sure.
I mean, I don't, I don't know how many people in here are used to looking at budgets. I mean, yeah, I did it for 28 years, so I look at the other sheet and I'm just like, hey, this is so easy to understand, but then other people are like, I don't get it, so.
I think when you're presenting to the public, the way you presented tonight will be the most understandable.
Okay. And I'll try and add some more notes in here, because I know someone will be like, well, what did you spend $48 on? And you just, you know, those real small impacts. But, I mean, I like the reconciliation down here, because it shows, you know, hey, we had a $1 million budget, but we spent 1.5 million. What happened? What happened? Where did it go? And how are you fixing it? Type of thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, which is where this, I feel, comes in very handy, because, you know, we had $59,000 in capital outlay expenditures that we kind of planned for, but then we had, you know, an additional, you know, $360,000 in capital expenditures, because we said, okay, we're way over budget because of the road work. Where can we get money from? And instead of robbing all the money out of our fund balance, which would have just increased everyone's taxes dramatically, we said we can go into our capital reserve. That's what that money is for. So, you know, we only ended up $150,000 overspending, so to speak, after that capital reserve money came out, you know, which is why we had to get permission from DRA to say, hey, we need to take a chunk of our fund balance because of this, this, and this, you know. So, you know, we've got that fund balance umbrella, you know, and I only asked for as much as I knew we absolutely could need. So we're still at a good spot with that.
So I think you're right. I mean, I think that's where I was saying on the other one, like, even below the line, show revenue that's gonna come in, that's gonna offset that, or somehow show that interrelationship where you're looking at the net, because you've got the appropriations and you've got the revenue.
Yeah.
And then you've got the net.
Yep.
So figure out, but don't feel like you have to stay with that format,
Okay.
unless you want that format, you and Tom, but I think there may be a better way of showing it.
Okay. Well, and to be honest with you, I like to try and keep it simple so that when people are looking at this and people are looking at the DRA forms we have to submit, it's easy to go, okay, I see how this all ties together.
And like,
And I can do the same thing with the revenue.
You could just collapse everything just with subtotals so that you get
Yes.
a summary.
Yeah.
So this is a lot cleaner and easier.
Yes.
Because you can just pull this into a subtotal.
Right. Right. And then I can do the same exact type of sheet with revenue.
Yeah.
Same exact. Yeah. Essentially the same report, just the money coming in. And then we'll have to do, you know, depending on how it comes in with FEMA, we have unanticipated fund meetings we'll have to have, and it's just part of what we have to do to get the money back. It's coming, it's just slow roll.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're meeting again in 2 weeks, another working session to go over the budget, right?
Yes, and we have, our first budget hearing is February 6th. And I'll get those notices out for the paper for next week.
That answers the question.
Can I get a copy of that?
I would rather not give a copy of that until the budget hearing,
Okay.
because when I did that last time, people came in and they were screaming and yelling, why did this change, why did that change? This isn't the same as what you told us last week, blah, blah, blah. And even though I said, hey, these numbers could change because it's not
Right.
final yet,
Yeah,
yeah, it caused a big mess. So
that's understandable.
you will get a printout of what it is when it's finalized at the budget hearing, but I'm not sending out anything prior to
Will
that.
it be all separated like that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I will not relive that one.
Seems a lot easier.
Yeah, no, this was This is much easier.
The other one got all blown out of proportion. They didn't understand. It was horrible.
Well, and
This is better.
and it was trying to go, well, yeah, there's this, but then there's that, and how we're coding it also has made a huge difference because those capital reserve expenditures we're coding to a different code.
Yep.
So we're trying to not even let it hit the department level, right? It just goes right to capital reserve expenditures, which makes it much easier. Yeah, we're learning. It's a process. We'll get there.
I wish we'd had this system.
Wouldn't it have been nice?
It would have been.
Well, and
I
full-
spent
and full-time
hours
time.
and hours on this
Yeah.
stuff. Like, a
I
tremendous
think we
amount.
had it in the right category, and DRA would say, nope, you gotta move it.
I'm very appreciative of the work you guys do.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And then
Oh, no.
oh, it does. It's because it's sagging.
It
pads in the wrong
area,
that's the problem. I need some sleep.
Can you get up so we can push the table back to that? Yeah.
What?
Make Eric do the hard, the heavy lifting, I just did it.
Yeah,
Right.
you want it to
But when
be.
this, but when it's presented like this, you're going, okay, I mean, you know, and